Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Saturday morning, December 16th, 9 days away from Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. I know a lot of people are out there shopping, but look, Christmas Eve was invented for men to go shopping. That's the busiest day of the year. Throw Black Friday out the window. It's Christmas Eve. At least that's what I saw growing up with Grandbob, my dad. But we will have the round table going here. Dave Tompkins from over in the Low Country, South Carolina, is going to check in with us in a minute on Savant Saturday. Also, Doug Dean in Birmingham, Frank Duffy in New Orleans. We'll jump on here in just a minute. Look, we do this 25 times a month, at least 300 days a year. And just like the Army saying, and Dave Tompkins knows this, we do more before 9 a.m. than most people do in a day. Prime time to me, it's about 5:15, 5:30. I watch my dad always, why'd he do that? He goes, boy, they taught you that in the Army. Get up early, got plenty of time to survey the landscape, get way ahead of everybody, not scrambling around. And being an architect, I like to plan. Dave Tompkins is going to be with us. It was a great show with you Tuesday. That was a lot of fun.
Sure was.
Frank Duffy in New Orleans in just a minute. And look, about a bunch of topics to cover today. And let me say this real quick too about Christmas right now and our sponsors that we're blessed to have. I got to say the Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi. The first of two locations that Justin Ross, my friend, is opening. The next one will be in Oxford in March, but they're open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. On Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. They've got specialists in there, nutritionists that work with you on the vitamins, the probiotics. If you are taking care of yourself, and we all should, you need supplements and vitamins in some cases, most cases, and they work. They'll get you the right stuff. You got to get the right fit, like buying a pair of shoes. Get the right vitamins. The Vitamin Shop, they are absolutely serious about what they do. We'll talk a lot more about them, but we're proud and blessed to have them as a sponsor. And we're also going to be, everybody make sure and check your phones, make sure we don't have any background noise, whatever. But anyway, Dave, Frank's getting ready down there in New Orleans. He may still be out on the night. I never know. Frank, hey, name me another show in America that had a live show with one of the co-hosts on the show that day, Frank, walking through the French Quarter on St. Patrick's Day with his fellow mates.
We were talking Derby that day. I remember that so well. And you're be up at 5 and stuff. Well, yeah. I was in bed at 9 o'clock last night and up at 5. But that rule you described, there is an exception, and that's of course New Orleans. Of course, it can be, it's 8 o'clock in New Orleans right now. So Frank may still be up, right? He may have pulled an all-nighter.
Look, there's no greater food city in the world. I've been to Paris, London now because of Gordon Ramsay, suddenly this food city. But typically, my dad's always said, if you lead a good life, and when you go to heaven, the English will be in charge of the administration, the French in charge of the cooking, the Italians in charge of the arts, and the Germans in charge of the police. If you end up going down below, the English or the Irish will be in charge of the cooking, the French in charge of the administration, the Italians in charge of the police, and the Germans in charge of the arts. I'll just leave it at that. The wisdom of Grandbob. I love it. Frank, how are you?
I'm full of knowledge on New Orleans restaurants, compared to Frank. But what I love about New Orleans is that my favorite Italian restaurant in the country is Irene's.
Yeah, great restaurant.
Ooh, Frank, counterpunch that one. What about La Uzi?
Hey, look, but people don't realize that New Orleans, they call it the French Quarter here, but it really should be called the Sicilian Quarter because so many Sicilian immigrants came here. The French were here 300 years ago, and then the Spanish, then the French, and it toggled back and forth. But what happened, when we had that mass exodus from countries like Ireland and Italy and Germany. Yep. Many of those three ethnic groups actually came to New Orleans. There's the Irish Channel just up the street, where every St. Patrick's Day, when I'm on the show on that Saturday, I walk up the street, I do my live show from the walk, going to start our parade. But the Italians here in the quarter in the 1900s, the early 1900s, that's who inhabited the quarter. This was a residential area. This was not the commercial area that it is now. This was residences, and that's why you have such great Italian restaurants. Liuzza's, Nick Liuzza is a great friend of mine. He was one of my bar backs at one of my bars at LSU. His great grandfather started Liuzza's. And then there's Liuzza's, and Liuzza's by the track, because of course you have to have an Italian restaurant right by the racetrack. That's a given, right? And so by the fairgrounds. And so, his family, they ran that restaurant for 80, 90 years. And, it's infused in the New Orleans cooking. I don't want to get too down to the minutia, but one of the best New Orleans dishes is a stuffed artichoke, which is incredible. It's fabulous. And you get the old fashioned Italian red gravy that everyone's families would make here on a Sunday. And for those of us that were in, families that, on my other side of the family is all my Italians, the Bazzettas, my cousins. And we would go to Miss Bazzetta's across the lake in Covington, in their farm. And they would have, Italian sausage and meatballs. And I mean, it was just fabulous. Veal cutlets. So, it's such a great, New Orleans is a great Italian thing. And that's where Irene's and a lot of, the little Mona Lisa's right near here in the quarter. Yeah. It used to be a great little place over on Ramparts, Mama Rosa's, which, oh my God, for $5.50, you get a big plate of spaghetti and meatballs and a salad and Italian, the twist Italian bread. Oh my God, you could eat. In fact, I sat there and watched Ben McDonald give up the home run when LSU lost the College World Series in 1987. That's where we sat and watched the game eating. I mean, it permeates the whole city.
Well, it is, and both of y'all, in the 1850s, Dominic, Michael, and Andrew Canali came over from northern Italy, came in through New Orleans, and farmed their way up Mississippi River Delta, and ended up in Memphis in 1858. And you've got the Canali family is there's nothing like them. There in one of the Canali families alone, 4 of the kids played in the NFL. They're absolutely amazing, but they came up. People forget they came up through New Orleans, and the big Irish port was Savannah, one of the grid cities, which is, and it is. But I'm going to tell y'all something. A lot going on in college football. A lot of Christmas parties going on. People out. Man, it is a busy time of year. Let's throw some topics up here. The bowl games are underway, and to borrow a Barry Switzer line, after Oklahoma had won a national championship, they were piled up on the floor in excitement, and someone asked him about the craziness. He said, "Too much is never enough." Dave Tompkins, you got the color TV
Switzer
going?
Saying that,
yeah.
Well,
it's Barry Switzer.
This is one of my favorite weekends of the sports viewing year, even though nothing really important is happening sports wise. Yeah. You've got some good college basketball games: North Carolina, Kentucky, Purdue, Arizona. So that's great, but it's still preseason. It's still before conference play, by and large. But what you got is a couple NFL. It's a great weekend to be in a sports bar, because you've got the NFL, couple games on there. I think the 3 games, all of them are important today. All of them have playoff considerations. You've got great college basketball on. You got Tiger and Charlie Woods and the PNC and golf. You got horse racing at fairgrounds. You got simulcast in your sports bar. So you got all this background going on, knowing that next week is Christmas, and then the following week people descend upon New Orleans and Pasadena, respectively, for the playoffs. Yeah, and I didn't even mention the bowl games on. No big bowl game on today, but I think there's 6 today, And so that's on in the background. So there's just a ton of sports.
Dave, to your point, the bowl games that are on are being played by young men who have no shot in most cases of the NFL.
Right.
They're not looking to get out of any portals. They're not looking to sit out. They play for the love of the game.
Yep.
And that's the bowl games that you have now. And for seniors, and of course, with COVID still being in our window of opportunity, they might be like Major Ogilvy at Alabama. They might be 10th year seniors, but this might be their last go round game. And you see it, you see in the meaningless, Outhouse Bowl or the Weed Eater Bowl in Freeport. You see these kids killing themselves for that last bit of glory. And look, I remember being a high school basketball player because our school was too little to have football. I played baseball and basketball, and I remember my last competitive game in basketball. We were in the high school playoffs, and I'm telling you what, it took me forever to leave that locker when I was a senior. So you can imagine what it's like for collegiate players, which is high school, exponentially bigger.
Yeah. We did. Doug Dean joining us. Bama Girl for Life joined here just now. It's just Dave. She's right. He's right. Major Ogilvy, an 11th year senior. Doug Dean,
you are when he graduated.
Doug Dean down in Vestavia, not Birmingham, but right next to Birmingham. One of the most beautiful.
Where Major Ogilvy is from, even though he played at Mountain Brook.
He sure is.
Wait a minute, Doug. Little recruiting violation there.
You can use this joke, Dave. Major Ogilvy was at Alabama so long, he left the field marshal. That's how long Major Ogilvy was at Alabama.
Those great San Francisco 49er teams with Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, the late Dwight Clark. Major Ogilvy was the last player cut one year for the 49ers, or else he'd have been he'd have been part of that dynasty.
That's impressive. Doug Dean, listening to some smart people. We've been talking about food, and I'm fasting until noon. This is torture, but Doug, jump in here. Wow.
Well, how you some bitches do it? Can you say that on the show?
On Saturday, yes.
First of all, congrats to Dave on Army, who has become a dominant dynasty program. Is it too soon to say that, Dave?
Well, interestingly, so Jeff Monken has a winning record against the service academies, against Air Force and the Navy. And even Army's all-time coach, Red Blake, who coached the Doc Blanchard, Glenn Davis, Mr. Inside Out. Air Force didn't exist back then, but he was only 500 against Navy. So Jeff Monken has a better of the games that really matter. Jeff Monken has a better record than our greatest coach.
Wow.
He's also 4-1 in bowl games. So we're just super happy. We lost our best athlete yesterday to the transfer portal. So even Army is losing players to the transfer portal. We can't get anyone back into the transfer portal because, you have to go back to your freshman year at Army.
Yeah. And is there any other sports to talk about, Rob, at all? I mean, we'll probably struggle to get through the show.
Well, yeah, there's college basketball, which we love college basketball, but here we got this calendar, okay? Football will go till January 8th for the national championship. Then you've got all the all-star games, the Senior Bowl, Super Bowl, and then after that first week of February, the next week somebody starts spring practice. So this is it's like eternal flame over here at the hunting club during duck season. We kind of keep a fire going for 2.5 months nonstop.
And
but
by
we
the
won't
way,
be without it.
My contract specifies, Rob Browne, that when I first come on live like this, don't ever let the first avatar I see be Bama Girl. just stop.
I don't know where they're coming up on the post, man. Hey, she's a new listener.
I think your daughter was behind that.
No, that is not Mallory. She's it better not be.
No, listen, I'm going to start with the most salient hot take. I hate that word hot take, but that you will have on the entire show today. I've been thinking a lot about the lack of a level playing field, competitive level playing field that's killing college football. I know all of us except Dave might agree with that. And here is the solution to it. The NCAA must adopt a new rule. It has nothing to do with salary caps that Supreme Court would probably strike down anyway. The NCAA must adopt a new rule that once a head coach has acquired his 8th national championship, he must exit stage right. There's a limit to it. And because, you might as well go ahead and I'm ready to say Saban is about to win his 8th. Is it 8 day? I think it's 8.
It would be 8, yes, 7 at Alabama and 1 at LSU.
Yeah, and now I'm sure that the Bama Nation would say, well, yeah, he really needs to build a bigger cushion against Bear Bryant, but or against future coaches. No, it's just killing college football. We've acknowledged you're the GOAT, Coach Saban, and I know for the good of the game, you're such a benevolent man that after you sweep the floor with Michigan and probably beat your protege Sarkisian, which would be the ultimate rematch revenge from earlier in the season, then what better time, Coach, to just do what's right for the game, Nick, and walk away.
Yeah. You know what? I think he's so competitive, Nick Saban is, that he won that 6th national championship at Alabama during the year of the virus.
Yeah.
He's like, some people think that one really didn't count. It was the same circumstances for everybody else. Then I think he's so competitive. Bryant won 6 at Alabama. He wants to win 7, even though it'll be his 8. He wants to say he won 7 at Alabama. And at the same time, he's rather benevolent. He contributed a lot of money to the Saban Student Catholic Center. And a lot of my friends go out of their way to go to Mass in Tuscaloosa just to go there. And, Mallory, our oldest daughter that graduated from Alabama when she was a freshman, that was when he came there. She was at Mass when they offered each other the sign of peace one time. He was right behind her, and he looked at her, and she looked at him, and she looked at him, and she said, "That's okay. People stare at me all the time." And he started laughing. He actually laughed. There was a moment of laughter.
If you didn't see, and I've sort of, in a weird way, I've become, even in defeat, after 4th and 31s, plays pulled out your backside, that I can see here's Saban on the headsets, and in the seconds following that ridiculous play, ridiculous if you're anybody but Alabama, he said to his OC, "Hey, you think we should just go ahead and say this was a design play? We've been working on this. Won't that be a better story instead of the just run around in the backfield, Jalen, and hurl it up there?" No, it was a design play, which itself is pretty doggone remarkable.
Yeah.
Who works on something like that?
Yeah. Right.
The half-life for misery, for the Iron Bowl half-life is like 22 years. So it's going to take 22 years before the misery of 4th and 31 is half of what it is right now.
Hey, I'm sorry to dominate, Rob, because I had to break Duffy's filibuster to jump in. Just kidding, Duff. No, seriously, about Major Ogilvy, I have a major story, and I was on the sideline at John Carroll High School. He was a couple of years older than I, but John Carroll was in the game, had a chance to win it against Mountain Brook.
I remember that game.
They made a fateful decision to punt it to Major Ogilvy, and he housed that one, and it was Katie bar the door, and he was a tremendous player.
Wasn't that at John Carroll Stadium on Montclair Road?
Yep, I believe so.
I was at the game. I as a kid, I lived in Crestline, right by John Carroll Stadium.
Oh yeah. Hey, and John Carroll started playing a little football finally this year.
Hey, I want to throw something at you. I think Jason Caldwell was on the show like Wednesday, Auburn Undercover, and he said there's talk now because of the playoff going to 12, the top 4 teams will get a bye in the first round. Then you'll have home games. So you could have Auburn and Alabama are concerned now. They might be hosting a game. So that Super 7 they do for high school football, they're thinking about maybe it goes, they did it at Protective Life Stadium, and Birmingham did a great job. Maybe go to Troy. Maybe go to Hancock Whitney Stadium in Mobile for a smaller, venue, because it's cavernous to have 102,000 and you've got 10 or 15,000 people at a game. I think that makes a lot of sense. Let me throw something at you. And I want Dave, you and I discussed this Tuesday. Then I'm going to let y'all run with it. But we talked about, are we going to go to where we see private venture capital start funding college athletic programs? And I'm going to throw this to Frank and Doug. Frank, you go first. To fund sports that are not called football, because Dave talked about Stanford They have run that athletic program into the ground, and it was a perennial superpower for the Sears Cup for the best athletic program. Frank, do you see us going down this path?
I don't think anything's off the table now. This is the wild, wild west. We're beyond the twilight zone with college athletics. Nothing would surprise me, quite honestly. Nothing would surprise me. But I will just tell you, whenever in doubt, follow one thing: the money.
Exactly.
Whatever they can make money on, they will not only do and they will encourage, but they will institute. And it's coming, guys. I mean, we are on the precipice already of semi-professional sports. I mean, it really, other than that, it's already here. What's the old saying? If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. And that's what we find ourselves in right now. So I could absolutely see, private money coming in, underwriting any college program for the rights to be their sponsor, their marketer, their endorser. Yeah. Absolutely. I can do that.
Doug Dean, we talk about this. I'm with Frank too. Nothing's off the table.
And what's strange about how did we get here? Like Coach Saban likes to talk about, he told a story of he was crossing the campus. Y'all probably heard this. It's hilarious. And he sees a young woman, a student, in blue jeans would have holes all in the thigh and the calf area. Like there's barely any fabric left probably. And she probably paid $500 retail for those. And Saban said, that's what I had to wear in West Virginia to go to school. We were embarrassed because we were so poor. And he said, how did we get here? Well, how did we get here? This one, what makes it, I think what's accelerated it, and as Frank said correctly, makes it the Wild West. It may be wilder than the Wild West. It is that the Supreme Court and the threats that they set in motion from that ruling, I think have made it very difficult, borderline impossible for the NCAA to just legislate and slow down all of this innovation. So innovation sounds nice, but when you accelerate it beyond what people can absorb and adapt and make sense of, there's a risk there that either it become, in the case of college football, it becomes too costly for a lot of schools to play. And I think that is looming on the horizon. Are you going to be able to sustain alumni giving and season ticket sales if you're not one of these top 30 or 40 programs? And in the long run, it might prove to be top 20 or 30 programs. Who's going to be interested in to watch the old alma mater play, knowing that you've got no chance to be in the 12-team playoff? That's out there. Also, we need to add the data point, and I don't have all the detail. One of you guys might, but I forgot who the plaintiffs are, but there is a lawsuit in the Ninth Circuit, I want to say, that is challenging the revenue side. Hey, we had name, image, and likeness, but we should have also been entitled to some of the revenue from these games.
Oh, wow. To open up Pandora's box bigger than Dallas, because that's all pitting. You start talking about the revenue that's brought in from TV deals. Now we're talking real money now.
Yeah. Well,
and what is the NFL's role? NFL has a vested interest in building future NFL talent. There's a lot of money in the NFL. What is their role, if any, financially to help make this work?
Well, let's throw something here, Dave Tompkins. You being in venture capital, I'm in the financial advisory investment world. My son's in the M&A business. And at 25 yesterday, he got to make a presentation to a guy out in California who's an NFL Hall of Famer. I'm going to have to let him tell me if I can. But it's unbelievable what's happening in the world. And Dave, think about this, what Doug just alluded to, and Frank. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals out in the People's Republic of San Francisco, they make some crazy decisions. But the Supreme Court ruled 9-0. You cannot infringe on an individual's right to earn a living. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's right there in the Constitution, the preamble. It's there. So I think the free market will correct this, because if I have a client that says, I'll take $1 million of those Metro government, Nashville and Davidson County tax-free bonds at 5%, they know they're getting $50,000 a year, federal and state tax-free income. We got rid of the Halls tax. So as a Tennessee resident, you can buy a bond from any state in America, and it's triple tax exempt. Do you think the fans are going to say, like Frank talked, he had 3 friends that invested in NIL a couple of years ago with LSU. By the time they got to the bowl game, all those guys had quit. That's how the free market's going to correct this. People are going to, invest money in these kids. They're going to walk. They're going to quit. And let me tell you something. No program is immune from it. Georgia has 17 players in the portal right now. 5 of them are 5 stars, and 8 of them are 4 stars, and 3 or 4 of them are 3 stars. So, you know what, Dave? You're getting an echo here, but anyway, tell us about it.
So there's not the University of Texas, but there's that new school coming online in Austin. I forget the name of it, but basically it's a privately funded school, and its whole thing. I'm using this as a sort of education as a precursor to education and athletics. It's basically its platform is, we are not progressive, we are not woke, we are teaching the truth. And we are a true academic institution without a political agenda. And they've gotten so much, private investment. They've got professors ready to teach there. They've got, parents sending their kids there. And it's going to, if it's successful, it will disrupt the education, basically ecosystem. I think the same thing is possible with an educational institution also having athletics, where it's going to be privately funded, and we're just going to, we're going to get the best coach, we're going to get the best players, we're going to incentivize the players to stay all 4 years or all 3 years or however long, and we're going to become a juggernaut of an athletic program, and we'll just use college football as the example, and so we're going to be able to compete against LSU and Alabama and Southern Cal and Texas, and because these schools are losing players like Georgia, 17, in the portal. If it's either public and it's regulated, or it's purely private, and we're in this in between land right now. And if we want to go totally private, let's do it. Let's game on.
Hey, Dave, it's collegiate homeschooling. It's collegiate homeschooling is what this thing's going to be. God bless them. I think it's a great idea. Hey, look, for somebody whose daughter has been in a 4-year, college, LSU, and I call it an institution of higher learning, but I already got my diploma. I know that would be a lie. I can't say that. But it's amazing that the brainwashing, the indoctrination that those tenured professors and my once conservative daughter. It's insane. So I don't doubt this for 1 minute. And what a great place. Talk about the People's Republic of San Francisco. The People's Republic of Austin, Texas would be an outstanding place for this to be.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's going on, and Bama Girl, dang, I'm just trying to enjoy my coffee and listen.
Hey, Bama Girl, we love you. I was having a little fun at your expense.
Bama Girl,
I'll give you an RTR just this once, Bama Girl for life. I know you're excited with a few weeks ahead from now.
Hey, Bama Girl, Bama Girl, we're just a little shell shock from 4th and 31. Us Auburn just have been a little salty for 2 weeks.
But Bama Girl, notice the man right there, born in Mountain Brook, a Bromberg jeweler's baby, and loves his Alabama. And my oldest daughter, Alabama grad, Mallory, and Doug has a daughter that graduated from Bama. So, hey, don't take anything personal.
Who saved a guy's life yesterday.
That Dave, Doug, that story was incredible. God bless her. That's awesome.
Yeah, and for the listeners, I won't belabor it, but God works in mysterious ways, and I choose to believe that this was a minor miracle yesterday. And that Allison had a repair guy over to check out. There was a gasket problem on the washer or something, and in the middle, she's a nurse practitioner, highly skilled. She's done neuro ICU in her past, and she's a family practice NP now. But she noticed. Suddenly his left hand, he was losing strength in it. And then all of a sudden his speech started to slur. She knew it was a stroke.
Yep.
So she called 911. She quickly got his medical history. They arrived very quickly. Took him out of her house on a gurney, got him to the ER, and I would. It's hard to follow up. You don't know who he is, and there's privacy laws, but odds are he survived and will be okay. And he picked the right house to go do a repair, didn't he?
And fast action for strokes. Fast action is the hallmark. And probably because of HIPAA regulations, you're not going to ever find out what happened with him. But thank God he was there with not only a medical professional, but a medical professional who acted quickly and acted bravely, because there's some medical people that don't get involved in that sort of stuff because of liability. So he picked someone that had God's grace upon him, and he is a fortunate fellow because of that.
No, that's not who that's not who we raised. She was going to get involved. We'll let the lawyers sort everything else out. Save a life.
No, I know. Right. God bless her, because I read that and it gives you chills. Let's do this. We're going to take a quick break. Bama girl, keep listening. Glad to have you. Got all these new people coming on. Man, all these new YouTube subscribers, Facebook, Twitter. Thank you. This is a team effort. Pat Sullivan's Heisman speech. It's not just one person up here. It's the entire group. Our listeners and our sponsors. We're blessed to have all of you. We're going to take a quick break, have a little music from the Sidelines Band. You know, this is Frank and Dave and Doug that play these instruments. Check it out. We'll be right back.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought-after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal, and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Curve everything else. Win, 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 win. These ops ain't lit. Mommy. Win, 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 win.
I tell you what, Dave, great job there on the fiddle and the bass drum and the snare drums. And let me say, all you duck hunters out there right now, man, it will get better. Daffy Duck, they make jokes about it, but this is serious business. And MJ Baker and all those guys are out this morning. It never gets old. I bet I've been duck hunting 1,500 times. It never gets old. And another thing, it never feels like work is doing this show with y'all. It is so much fun. And I'm getting a lot of comments on here. I'm gonna start trying to bring more of these comments in. This is wow. This is fun. Thank you. So here it is, Maury Salient, the most erudite sport podcast in America. Floyd R. Turbo from the Johnny Carson Show. I am Floyd R. Turbo. I love that character. But all right. He says, next food segment. I love this. Ask Davo his favorite Cuban place in Dallas and who owned it. And who would that be? Uncle Charlie owned it from My Three Sons?
Well, I forget the name of the place, but it was. I think it was in Highland Park. But the owner's name was Nestor. And what I particularly liked about it is that he never got Maury's name right. He called him Manny. And what I love about Savant Saturday is that, we talk about sports, but we also look at other things, and, savants that we are. And the Cohen brothers and Doc Schwartz from Racing Arizona, who's also Frank's psychiatrist. He was a prison psychiatrist, and then that music. I mean, that's "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Yeah,
I mean, that's this.
The thing about the Cohen brothers, when I was at Auburn and studying radio, TV, and film writing with Dr. George Plaskitas, who was an All-American defensive end at Ole Miss in 1976, he said, "I had to be tough, guys. I was the only kid in my neighborhood whose last name didn't end in SKI." He goes, so he taught us about the Cohen brothers at the University of Texas School of Film, and they write and they do the dark comedies. Fargo. Yep. Remember the movie "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" when they're at the intersection, the four-way intersection, and that guy gets in the back, the blues player. Well, when we get through hunting at my little farm I have the rights to down in Lambert, Mississippi in the Delta, we go to Big Abe's Barbecue in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And there's the junction there. Robert Johnson. There's only 2 or 3 photos of the guy taken in 1938, sold his soul to the devil to learn to play the blues. So Robert Plant, if you were in Memphis on Beale Street or South Main at like Ernestine and Hazel's at 3 a.m, you will go in there sometimes and you'll be like, "I don't believe what I'm seeing. Give me another drink." And you're still seeing it. Mick Jagger, Robert Plant might be in there because they come to Memphis and then they go down in the Delta and play the blues. They learn to play the blues because they listened on the BBC as kids to Muddy Waters, Clarence Gatemouth Brown, Howlin' Wolf. By the way, there's some controversy. One of Led Zeppelin's greatest songs ever, Doug, on his answering machine, that's a dated term, sorry, his voicemail, he has Kashmir playing from Led Zeppelin. But one of the greatest songs they ever did was "When the Levee Breaks," about the flood of 1927. And most people tell you Howlin' Wolf wrote that song. But Led Zeppelin always gives credit. When Robert Plant comes to Nashville, and he and Alison Krauss will go down and I mean, it's just an amazing story. The Mississippi is the birthplace of American music. That Elvis guy was pretty damn good from Tupelo, Mississippi. Anyway, it's Savant Saturday, man. Y'all take over.
Well, then let's stay on movies. You got Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Damone talking to Rat. And this above all, when you're about to go play side 1 of Led Zeppelin 4, then they're on the date, and actually the song's from Physical Graffiti, not Led Zeppelin 4. So
it is.
Only savants know that.
It is. And the next topic, this is another one I'm going to throw at y'all right now. And this is, okay, now, December 20th signing day is 96 hours away. Doug, we're going to start with you. There are Auburn fans, as you mentioned, that have got PTSD from some of the, Saban coming in late, but you're trying to hold on to what you've got. But now you've got NIL, and we'll throw it around to any schools. You think Auburn holds on to what they've got and then picks up 1 or 2 more maybe from down in Alachua County?
You're going to put me on the spot with such a hard question. I've been watching this a minute or two with how Saban recruits. Kirby Smart's right there with him. And I think it would be foolhardy. It would be the height of naivete to think that our rivals are going to go quietly on elite 5-star recruits. I have chiefly in mind right now Perry Thompson, the wide receiver in South Alabama. He's talked very, boisterously about his commitment to Auburn. But then if you want to really get anxiety, if you're a serious football fan that follows recruiting, you start to see pictures pop up on the Twitter sphere with Saban and his staff in home with Perry Thompson, and it can fray your nerves a little bit. So as fast as 2023 has blown by, maybe it's just that I'm getting older. Each year now it's not one. If you're 3 years old, the perception of each year is 1/3, and when you get to be 50, it's 1/50th. That's a little twist on Einstein's theory of relativity. But and that might be a little deep for a Saturday morning. But so as fast as this year has blown by, it is going to be the longest damn 5 days to next Wednesday's early signing day, the 20th, for a lot of fan bases. I don't think Alabama fans are worried. They know they're always going to have great talent. I don't think Georgia fans are worried that much. But when you start talking about players like Ryan Williams out of Saraland, who is some believe is maybe, at least if you can, to the extent you can extrapolate from the film, is one of the most electric wide receivers, returners to come out of this state in 5 or 10 years, maybe longer. So the sweepstakes for he's an Alabama commit right now. A big game about them. I would expect he'll sign with them, but he can't do so until first Wednesday in February. So the battle continues. I don't think he can change anything that would allow him to sign this Wednesday. Auburn's still in it for that one. And I think what Hugh Freeze would – any Auburn fan should be ecstatic if we hold on to the commitments that we have at the moment. And that won't be easy because quite a few of them are sought after by all the big names. The two biggest recruitments, Rob, arguably for Hugh Freeze this year on the defensive side of the ball are Keontae Scott and yesterday Eugene Asante linebacker.
Yeah.
Both, to some extent, surprisingly, coming back for more next year. And if you've got a nucleus of leadership like that on both sides of the ball, that really allows you to feel like the ceiling might be a little higher next year.
Yeah. And also, before I'm going to throw this back to y'all, I talked to a coach at a school who said, watch these kids now that are coming back for a 5th or 6th year. They're probably not getting a lot of positive feedback from the NFL. And if they're being offered substantial NIL money, they come out and they go, these last 4 years have been the best years of my life, blah, blah, blah. With that being said, instead of I'm going to the portal, it's I'm back. I loved what Keontae Scott did. The 0 is back. So that's something to think about.
And Rob, quickly, let me underscore what you're saying. I'm glad you said it. I got to interview the great Butch Thompson, Auburn baseball coach.
Love him.
And my article on that interview is coming out maybe this weekend. And he talked about a different deployment of NIL that people don't think about. We think of the $2 million for a quarterback in the portal or a high school QB that we've never seen play a college game. But in baseball, guess who's coming back that will be the catalyst if he stays healthy this baseball season? Joseph Gonzalez, the pitcher, that power sinker that he can throw. He's old school. He can take over a game, but he is able to pass on modest Major League Baseball money because of NIL money that Auburn is able to rally in their war chest.
Yeah.
And they get treated better, Doug, because in college, these baseball players now are treated like kings. You don't get that plugging around on single A on the Trailways bus going from Pawtucket to Schenectady. I mean, they're feted very well on these college teams, and if you can get $5,000, $10,000 to go to your pizza fund or your local tavern beer fund, or maybe if we can resurrect the War Eagle Supper Club, that money goes a long way.
And Duff, I haven't confirmed this. I'll ask Butch, but word is that Gonzalez heard there may be a new LSU background announcer at Auburn baseball games this year.
That's what it was. Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears. Technically, I am employed by Auburn University as the backup PA announcer. Now, mind you,
I want it to be the Auburn LSU game.
By the way, my phone not rang yet. I'm just letting y'all know that. I'm on the payroll. I just haven't gotten paid anything yet. But honestly, I would love to call a game at Plainview Park. That would be so much fun. And look, I'm like y'all. I'm a big fan of Butch's. I think he's a phenomenal coach. As a about to be 63-year-old catcher with bad knees and maybe a little eligibility left, if he ever needs somebody to go take one, get plunked just to get down to first and have a pinch runner, I'm his guy. So I would love to do that, Doug.
Well,
I'm hoping one day.
As an LSU fan, you certainly know what good baseball looks like.
I do that.
And Dave Tompkins and y'all, Butch Thompson, I saw it on Twitter X last night for his birthday. He's out in Wyoming or Montana snowmobiling, and looks like he was that ain't bad for an old boy from Amory, Mississippi, who grew up in the suburb of Coontail. Absolutely loved. Mike G did a great segment. Mike Gittins, the War Reporter, with Butch showing his new facilities improvement off the charts. Dave Tompkins, we're talking a lot about this signing date and Saban and that staff. I think I'm going to throw this at you. And Bama Girl, this is pay attention.
Bama Girl's about to be happy.
That's right. I think this is the team that Nick Saban, when he writes his memoirs, or they're written for him with a ghostwriter, he will say, I had more fun coaching this team because I got re-engaged. I felt young again. coaching this Alabama team. It'll be like Shug Jordan's 1972 team, the Amazons. This one, because they were written off for dead. Basically, when they lost to Texas, we were down at Orange Beach watching that game. Y'all all know that this is the way it was. The dynasty's over. Saban's done. There's a new sheriff in town, and he doubled down and fought back. Do you agree or disagree? There goes Stedman Shealy.
Orange Beach. I mean, it's like saying. It's like saying, you know, the Floribama is dead. And let's take down the bras, right? It's
we went to the Floribama many nights down there.
On all the bras and everything. But,
right.
you know, yeah, I think this is Saban's opus year. And, you know, you go back to the beginning, and I would say the most important player early on that sort of got the program started was Julio Jones. And I think the wide receiver from Saraland, if you look at LSU and Alabama, who I think, you know, over the past 15 years have been the best two programs, and take, you know, don't consider the coaches, whether it's Saban, Les Miles, Coach O, or whatever. The reason why they've been the best two programs is because of their wide receivers. Yeah. Julio Jones used to say, I'm Waffle House. I'm Waffle House because I'm always open. And you have a couple Waffle Houses. And I mean, you can build a program around that. I think even more than a quarterback. I know that's outlandish for me to say that. Same's true in baseball with a dominant pitcher in a 3-game series, which, you know, the playoffs usually are in baseball. You have your dominant, you know, go game 1. Say you get a big lead, then he only pitches like 4 innings, and then you committee the rest of the game. He's then available for game 3. Whether it's in as a middle reliever or as a closer or whatever, and so a lower seeded team can beat a better team in baseball just with one pitcher. And I really think, I mean, if I were building a football program and I'm going to pay NIL money, I'm going to get world class wide receivers. I mean that to me that they are the X factor.
Dave, I think it's an astute point. We tend to get obsessed as fans about what's right in front of us, which is always the quarterback. And that's none of us are diminishing the criticality of the QB being at least competent, if not elite. And to your point, people are the big discussion on every Auburn message board and at the water cooler is, does Hugh Freeze go in the portal for what he would hope might be a QB that could challenge Peyton Thorne in the spring? But I think what Hugh's going to do is not, unless he can get a generationally proven, capable quarterback. Maybe that's Cam Ward. I don't think Auburn will land him because the price tag's too high. But what should happen with a few games to polish it is these receivers, by getting separation, all the things that you didn't like about Peyton Thorne that were not perfect, suddenly get 20 or 30% better. Why? If you want to criticize Peyton Thorne for keep holding the ball too long, guess why he was holding the ball? Separation. Now all of a sudden you got receivers that can run routes, be competent, and there's more than a couple of them, then Peyton Thorne will automatically look like a more competent quarterback. I think that's what Freeze is banking on.
Well, to your point, Doug, and to Dave's point, Alabama wouldn't be here without Jermaine Burton this year. I mean, he had an incredible year, and yeah, he wasn't Bond in the corner of the end zone, which is if Alabama's saving grace on the 4th and 31. But Jermaine Burton, look at the game that he had against Georgia. I mean, in the SEC championship game.
To their dismay.
Absolutely. Malik Neighbors. Jaden Daniels is not the Heisman without Malik Neighbors. Right, which frankly got jobbed by Marvin Harrison Jr. Should have won the Biletnikoff as well. And also to Dave's point, we don't win the College World Series without Paul Skeens. So you're exactly right. One player can take over a game, and just as important is the queen in chess, a good bishop or a good rook like a wide receiver can make or break whatever your offense or defense is in the end game of chess. And that is exactly the case.
Let me tell you what's going on. Dave, I want to throw this at you real quick. Art Keough, 35 years ago, former offensive line coach at Miami, a legend, talked at a conference because an offensive line coach told me this. And he said, going forward, the prima donnas in college football will be the wide receivers. Look at this class of receivers. Auburn's got 4 of them. They're trying to get the 5th one, Ryan Williams, to flip, whose dad played at Auburn, left, but still loves Auburn. That'll be interesting. But Ryan will be in Auburn this weekend visiting. But he's also going to visit 4 other schools, he says, between now and February 9th. But, Dave, you're right. And that picture taken 3 years ago of Devontae Smith from Amite, Louisiana, Henry Ruggs III from Robert E. Lee High School in Montgomery, Jerry Jeudy out of Deerfield Beach, Florida, and Jalen Waddle out of Bellevue, Texas. Those 4 guys going on the practice field. And I'll tell you, Jalen Waddle, as far as a high character guy, I know NFL people, they wanted that guy so badly. But Dave, respond. This is so much information, and I'm not even drinking Irish coffee yet.
There was a YouTube sensation, at least it went around. Bama Girl probably knows about it in the Alabama circles, where there a couple really funny African American guys watching the Alabama LSU game, and speed. That just kept saying that. I'm probably some of y'all have seen it, but it was about those 4 wide receivers and how they would get separation and then they'd get the ball and then just run away from people. And if you've got people that can change the game like that, I mean, you don't have to have a world-class offensive line. You don't have to have a world-class quarterback. You don't have to have a world-class running backs. I mean, they've got to be competent, but all you got to do is just pitch and catch the ball to them and just let them go. And they change the game. You know, on defense, I don't, back in the 80s, I don't care how good your offense was. If you were playing the New York Giants and Lawrence Taylor, you were in trouble. I mean, he could change the entire game by himself. And it's really, it's less about the position and more about who really changes the game.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, we had a couple of LSU guys watching the LSU-Alabama game, and they got them on tape. But it wasn't speed. It was flag.
Hey, how about this one? Gumby Dave has joined the conversation. You remember Gumby and Pokey?
Damn it, Gumby.
I'm Gumby, damn it.
I'm Gumby, damn it. All right.
Eddie Murphy's classics.
Hey.
He was still the greatest movie he was ever in, had to have been Trading Places. That role, man, when he was out there riding around on that dolly, man, once you've been with a man with no legs, you ain't been, that's one of the classic. Doug Dean, got to throw this at you. And, wait a minute, Bama Girl, I started believing in the second half of the Tennessee game. I saw they really wanted it. Bama, let me tell you something. We got our demographics on our show. 30% of our viewers and listeners are women. And I mean, 70% are men, because there's only men and women. There's no, newts or, anything else. It's just you're a man or a woman. But I'm going to tell you one thing about women in football and sports. Like, my wife, Audrey, has a degree in psychology and a master's in elementary ed, and she can read body language. And I want to throw this at you, Doug. She gets on me and says, Auburn fans, because she goes, you're right. Y'all live in the same state as Alabama. Y'all win a game. It's not by enough. The tailgate's over and everybody goes home because, you won 38-10. You're like, how'd the other team score? Are we not being grateful enough for what we have? Audrey told me last night, she said, we need to remember every day to thank our angels every day in our lives.
We do. And since Bama Girl for Life is still on, we didn't lose her. Happily.
I love this girl, man.
No, I love it. She should know, Rob, back me up on this. I was seeing great things coming from this Alabama team before it was cool to see them. I mean, some of my good Bama friends who are pretty doggone high IQ with football were doubting Thomas until, I don't know, maybe the LSU game, the way the defense just took over that game, and Milroe started to really show signs of being, it's probably too early to say elite, but he's getting there. He's flawed, but man, he's so deadly. So now, the bandwagon, you get trampled by people jumping on the Alabama bandwagon, and with good reason. I think I've said this will be the 20th time, Rob. If Saban, almost even if he doesn't win it all at this point, you could make the case this is his finest coaching job, because he worked with a team that's got a lot of talent, but they've got flaws, and a bunch of their players were developmental on into mid-season. So I think he is going to run the table. I think it's absolutely going to be. Michigan has already lost to Alabama. I said it. Yeah. If you've got any Michigan fans tuned in, challenge that. Jim Harbaugh, prove us wrong, because I just think the space between the ears, he's got to show. It's one thing to be an alpha when you're in the Michigan-Ohio State game. Yeah. But when they go out there and the SEC's been so dominant in the playoffs, that's going to work on their head a little bit, and I think that's going to cause Michigan problems. Alabama's speed and talent is also going to cause them problems. So I look forward to that one. I think it's inevitable we get a Texas-Alabama rematch.
Let me say this. Scared people sleep late.
Men and women, as fans.
Yeah, if they sleep
at all.
Yeah, but scared people like to sleep late because their dreams are better than reality. I wake up every morning and say it's going to be a great day, 5 Alive, I'm pumped up. But I think Doug's right. When you saw that body language in that room full of the Michigan players, like, and
they can Rob, right. they can turn it around if, and this is a long shot to my opinion, if they've got there's a few alphas that are players or a few assistant coaches that are alphas and can possibly get them to rise above that and play fierce and have a chance, because they're a very capable team. Michigan's been the darling of college football for most of the season, but I still like Alabama now.
And Jim Harbaugh is certainly the darling of the media.
Yeah.
Well, it's like in March Madness when they do the reveal and have all the sort of the Zoom with all the schools and stuff, and you're a 1 seed. And I get to have to go against Tom Izzo in the second round, and that's just like they're an 8 seed or whatever. It's that's just going to be a meat grinder, and that's going to be such a tough game, and I'm probably going to lose it. And Izzo knows it, and I know it, and Izzo knows it, I know it, and all that kind of stuff. I think that was Michigan's thinking when they weren't playing Florida State.
Yeah, you got to. Y'all are all right about the psychological part of it. 95% of life is showing up with a positive attitude, a couple of extra boxes of shells, some walking around money like Uncle Jed, but a positive attitude. And if you're worried we're going to lose, if you're saying that, you will become what your thoughts are.
Whether you think you're right or you think you're wrong, and you can or you cannot, you're both correct.
Yeah, you just.
Rob, it is. Rob, it is. I don't mean to be show host here.
No, this is open forum, man.
After the break, if you got one coming up, would you give us all 4 of us a couple of minutes to talk about what jumps off the page at you from next year's exciting SEC schedules? Absolutely.
Let's do this. Let's take this. Totally agree with you. Absolutely, because that schedule reveal and I got to go to a party today from my daughter Hallie's going to tell us if she's having a boy or a girl, and I'm not going to use that term reveal because that's Hollywood, but just give me 10 fingers, 10 toes, and a heartbeat. I'll take it, boy or girl. Right. But we're going to do this. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. We're going to be right back for the beginning of hour number 2 on Sidelines. Dave Tompkins in the Low Country Stew Country of both Buford, South Carolina. Frank Duffy down in New Orleans in the French Quarter. Doug Dean in Vestavia, next to Mountain Brook, right by Birmingham. Right after this, and Bama Girl, all of our listeners, Gumby, damn it, we'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Sidelines band, man, gets better every day. I didn't know y'all were that talented. Nigel found that.
The Soggy Bottom Boys.
Yeah, the Soggy Bottom Boys, the Coen brothers, maybe the greatest film directors. Kevin Costner, remember Waterworld? He lost $167 million on that one, but I think he's done okay with Yellowstone. That's a big one. All right, let's get to the schedules of 2024. That was a great program on SEC Network. And Laura Rutledge, I really want to get her on the show. She was an intern with Buddy Martin, Franz Beard, and the folks down there, and Brendan Martin at Gator Bait Media. She's fantastic. Really, really good. I hate it when they get really good, because I keep asking this to Roman Harper. Don't let the NFL take you away. But, Doug, I'll start with you about the 24 schedule, because it's going to be here real fast. It'll be here before we know it.
I'll try not to steal everybody's thunder on a couple of things that jumped out at me. Goodness gracious. The Billy Napier, the close to the Florida season, Georgia at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss at Florida State.
Good luck.
Let me caption that with my singing voice, if you don't mind, Rob Browne. Farewell and adieu, the old Spanish ladies. No, hey, we're all kind of, if you're not a hater, a Florida hater, and I'm not, I hope Billy Napier takes that as an opportunity, and he's got his team playing good ball, and maybe if he can win, even 3 of those, he's probably safe at Florida. But man, that is just the committee.
Brutal. The
committee, it's as if they said, we don't like Billy Napier, and we're going to show you how that looks. Second thing that jumped out at me, Boomer Sooner, first road trip in the SEC, Jordan-Hare Stadium, baby. And it's probably going to be a night game under the lights. Why? Because Bama, Georgia is, in my opinion, probably going to be the primetime afternoon game. Do you agree with that, TV-wise, Dave?
Yeah, and listen, on Georgia, I mean, Georgia has to play at Alabama and at Texas next year. That's pretty brutal.
Welcome to reality, Georgia.
My third,
you're out of that damn East. Welcome to the show.
My third and last thing, sort of opinion, is if Vegas has an over and under on how many SEC teams will be undefeated, and that includes non-conference games, I'm cheating. Regular season undefeated, it should be 0. First of all, Georgia and Alabama play, so you get one of those out of the way with a loss.
Yeah, I'll take the under on that.
Yeah, seriously. If you take the over, you need to see your doctor and get properly medicated.
Right.
And with that in mind, and then we'll jump to Duff, second out of the bullpen. I think that we should be lobbying the CFP committee, because they're under such pressure after the Florida State fans, hoopla. And even though I think the committee did a credible job. Opinions are going to vary on that. Somebody had to get hurt in this, and it was FSU. But they should prepare themselves that it's possible for a 3-loss. I said it, a 3-loss team to be in the college football playoff. Maybe their 10th or 11th pick. But in the example I like is Ole Miss, who, if Lane Kiffin can't get it done this year, go study their schedule, then he won't ever. But if he loses, he could lose to a very good Georgia team. It's in Oxford. He doesn't play Alabama. He gets to dodge Saban until possibly the SEC title game if they're that good. He could lose to LSU. on the road. That's at Death Valley, I think, Frank.
Yeah.
And then he could lose, pick one more team. They don't play Auburn. So Lane Kiffin's got an opportunity here, but that would be a 3-loss SEC team that is worthy of consideration.
Well, let me tell you, if it was a 12-team playoff right now, I think LSU would be a 11 or 12 seed
100%.
With the way we were playing, especially at the end of the year against. I mean, we boat raced Florida, we boat raced Texas A&M. I think the thing on the big reveal on the schedule is all of us in the old SEC West all rushed out to pray that we had Vanderbilt on the schedule. I was so happy when I saw him, I almost did a break dance. But I saw Vanderbilt, but I also saw Florida, and all I kept saying was, hey, I thought I was done with them. How in the hell did I get Florida again?
I think this is just a short stair step to a 16-team playoff, because what's going to happen, I think next year, as early as next year, is the SEC is going to beat each other up. And we're going to have multiple teams in the 12-team playoff. But let's say we only have one team that gets a first-round bye, or no team that gets a first-round bye. And you got, a team from the ACC that, a 2 or 3 loss SEC team could beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns. They get a first-round bye. I mean, that first-round bye is huge. I mean, that is one game you get to rest. And so the SEC is going to beat up, and so there's going to be one, maybe 2 SEC teams that do not get a first-round bye that would otherwise deserve one.
Yeah.
In any other conference, and so it's just going to be this is just a segue to a 16-team playoff, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah, and number 13 next year and 14 will be whining. I mean, that's just how it goes. But that also is a catalyst for more interest in college football, because if you go back since November 6th, 1869, Rutgers 6, Princeton 4 in 10 innings they played. Each team had 25 players on the field. And by the way, if you're thinking of a great Christmas gift, my man Norman Jetmanson down in Birmingham, he and David Cruz spent over 6 years on that documentary, Sewanee 1899, Unrivaled.
Great
that
pick.
will remind you of why we absolutely love and embrace college football. And that football field at Sewanee is the oldest continually used football field in America, Merica, America. Maury Gaston from Sylacauga, the marble capital of the world, always says that. But it's true. And I think the more that we look at the history of college football, who would not give money to hear Kurt Gowdy broadcasting a game on, that great voice, a Wyoming cowboy at that. But
Stabler.
Yeah. I mean, but every time you go into Floribama, you look for Kenny Stabler. Yeah.
Keith Jackson.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I just put a text in to Bill Hancock, the chairman of the playoff committee, see if he can be on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I'm going to try to do that, because I know y'all have got a lot of questions for him, and he's very generous and coming on sidelines a lot.
Bill might still be in witness protection.
No, I think it's some of those other people on the committee who are florists and hairstylists that are on that committee that are not football people. I have to wonder about some of them.
Hey, and
if I were redesigning football with like consideration of NIL, transfer portal, everything, the playoffs, what I would say is, okay, there's going to be in the regular season, there's no non-conference games. It's a 10-game season in conference. And then you have basically an NCAA tournament, which is the Sweet 16, and then you have sort of an NIT, and you have another 16-team, playoff, and for whatever its cup is, and obviously the NCAA Sweet 16, that determines the national champion. So you play up to 14 games, because 10 in regular season and then up to 4 in the playoffs, and I think that. It addresses the dilution of the bowls, that, not playing too many, having to play too many games, et cetera. I would personally find that to be a more entertaining product looking forward.
And Dave, is my Bama compadre, the SEC scheduling geniuses really showed their reverence for the importance historically of the Iron Bowl by giving both teams very easy cupcake games a week before the Iron Bowl. Alabama goes to Oklahoma Auburn gets Texas A&M at home a week before. Crazy.
Yeah.
There ain't no weeks off, brother. No weeks off.
Yeah. And that's why when Auburn went and said, we want to have, Auburn has Georgia, easy game at Alabama. Well, they moved the game to early October for Auburn, Georgia, and they just replaced it with LSU or Texas A&M. They need to just go back, do it like it used to be. Well, what they need to do is get Auburn where they had it. Where they play Alabama in Auburn one year, at Georgia, or Georgia in Jordan-Hare and at Alabama. That changed in 2012-13 when A&M and Missouri came in. Doug, I'm going to throw this one at you. Who's got the easiest schedule? That's a relative term. But, last summer, everybody said Georgia doesn't play anybody. And we said, well, it's easy to say that when you're down there at Grayton Beach laying in the Western Inlet right there with a cold Hamm's beer in your hand. But wait till you get the season going. Eli Drinkwitz, he was walking the Green Mile, according to a lot of people. I like the guy. He wears blue and white seersucker suits, and he's from Alma, Arkansas, and he's a smart, funny guy, but he knows football. But there'll be another Missouri this year. But, Doug Dean, who's got the easiest schedule, in your opinion, in 24?
Well, I reject the premise of your using the word easy.
Yeah, exactly. I shouldn't say that.
No, I know what you mean, but there are degrees of difficulty.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to be, when you forecast, it's like economic forecast. The minute it's published, what you know is that at least a third of it is wrong. It's hard to know which part of it's wrong. So there's going to be some team that we're calling easy right now. Who knows? Is that Kentucky? Is it South Carolina? To be determined. That is significantly better, and they're good enough to be a problem for some team losing a game they shouldn't lose. So the notion of easy, we're sort of looking at helmet logos to figure that out. I think if you only play one of Alabama or Georgia, then that helps you for obvious reasons. I'm going to say Ole Miss, kind of back to my point. Not because they've got a schedule that they can just run the table on. They have to play LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia. But the way their schedule lays out, they get Furman, Middle Tennessee, at Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. So he's going to bring a new QB in. Kiffin knows how to do that. I think I heard a train going right then. And
Boxcar Willie in the background.
Yeah. He gets 4 games to fine-tune that offense and get everything else polished. Then he gets Kentucky at home. Then it starts to get real for Hotty Toddy at South Carolina, at LSU. They get Oklahoma in Oxford. That'll be a wild one. At Arkansas. Then they host Georgia. And then it closed with Florida and the Egg Bowl. And by the way, Mississippi State won't be the pushover with Levy there now. He's going to have them play an offense by mid to late season. So I'm going to say Ole Miss. Somebody else make the case for another team.
Now, let me throw one at y'all for Frank and Doug and Dave. I want y'all to answer. I think Lane Kiffin right now, you got Saban, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, third best coach in the league, but nobody in America does a better job. He and his staff and his dad, Monty Kiffin, helps him of vetting players in the portal. Ole Miss has already got 4 of the top 5 kids in Mississippi committed to sign on Wednesday. Do y'all agree or disagree about Kiffin? I think he's growing up and maturing in a lot of ways people are not giving him credit for. I've always been a fan of his because he's cocky and he wins.
I'm sorry, that was the train bringing all the Texas A&M players we're getting from the portal. They were just bringing them on into New Orleans. Hey, we'll get them up to Baton Rouge. We'll quiet this down in a little bit.
Yeah, I love it.
Boy ain't right.
But what about Kiffin? I think he's a hell of a coach.
Well, Steve Sarkisian, but he hasn't joined yet.
Yeah.
Venable, I don't know. Brian Kelly. So it's what's amazing about the SEC is like no one has an easy schedule. Every team's schedule next year is brutal. There are 10, 12 just great football teams in the SEC now with the addition of Oklahoma and Texas. And there are 6, 7, 8 really, really, really good coaches. It's become the most if it already wasn't, it's become the most powerful sports league in the world.
Yeah, it is. Frank.
Hey, Rob, real quick.
Yeah.
One way you can answer that, this may be useful. You could, the tiebreaker for who's got the most difficult schedule, and then by deductive reasoning, you back into which teams have a little easier path. Look at the non-conference opponents. Texas gets to go to Ann Arbor. And that's it's not if Michigan were to get by Alabama, you could have a rematch of the national championship game, Texas and Michigan next season. You guys, Duffy, I think y'all play USC
and
early.
UCLA. We play both LA teams. I don't know how the hell that happened.
And so, and I'm leaving some. Georgia plays Clemson again, and Clemson might start playing football again next year. So, those teams that kept very difficult non-conference opponents. What is they're going to have their work cut out for them in the SEC, and then you add a non-conference. You can't afford to lose that non-conference game, in my opinion.
That's right.
Yeah.
You make it to Atlanta next year, you've done something.
Yeah. Let me throw something at y'all. The portal window is hard to manage. Kids have to decide now. They do, and people are saying we need to change it. Well, the reason it's where it is because they've got to know so they can enroll in January, and most colleges start the first week of January.
Yeah.
So they have to do that. I don't think there's any choice on that. So, look, I do think this. Almost 50% of the kids in the portal are not getting picked up. The problems they had at school A will follow them to school B and school C until they fix them themselves. So, folks, people, quit running around with your hair on fire waiting for the other shoe to drop. This stuff's going to work itself out. I'll never forget, in the 5 years leading up to Y2K, if I had $1 for every one of my clients and people that asked me, Brother Rob, what are you doing to get ready for Y2K? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And it's going to be a non-event. I mean, there's nothing to worry about. But people love to climb the wall of worry. We all know these kind of people. Chaos and insanity give them power. Okay? It's called the federal government. But anyway, let's think about this. Kids have to decide now to enroll in the portal. Look at what schools are losing in terms of real production. But I go back to that figure that I threw out there on Georgia, and look at these numbers, folks. 5 5-stars, 8 4s, and 3 3s. I mean, if someone has a recruiting class like that, they're going to be in the top 5 in the country, if not number 1.
That shows you the overabundance of riches that Kirby Smart has put together over in Athens. I mean, that's incredible. That shows you what a good recruiter he is.
Oh, yeah. And Will Muschamp, and I'm with you. I mean,
but you got to recruit your own people more than you recruit outside. I mean, you recruiting is a 24-hour-a-day thing, and you got to work on your own people more than you do the high schoolers that you're trying to bring in, or the people that the transfer portal sadly works in both ways.
It does.
I mean that's a haul for anybody in the transfer portal, but to then turn around and lose that's
what it boils down to. Every corporation in America, guys, we all know this: employee retention. You've got to invest in your employees and hope they don't disappear. Frank, come back and see us if you can. But Doug, you know this, and Dave, you know this. You've got to tell. You watch Kirby Smart. Watch him when they do those, behind the scenes on SEC Network. He is going up to every player on that field and saying something to them in the warm-ups and whatever. You do that. Now, he's got 16 guys in the portal, but there are guys beating the door down to get picked up by Georgia now. So the portal, as Shoney always says, the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. The taketh away part is interesting. I've heard Coach Saban all the coaches talk about this, the dynamic of we can't really declare victory. You're thrilled when you get that ink on the paper and a high school player has signed with you. But the fun has really just begun. If they're an elite 5-star receiver, for example, and Hugh Freeze brings in 4 of those, maybe 5 if he can flip Ryan Williams, but let's just say it's those 4, especially Cam Coleman. Then next year, if these guys, they're going to get on the field, because we've had guys, receivers portaling out, which
Yeah.
would probably encourage to consider that, if you
Yes.
will. But next year, if they, halfway through the season, Hugh Freeze to win football games is leaning on his great running game, and they're not getting enough targets through the air, they start to get restless. And meanwhile, they look across the state or at Georgia, and they're throwing the ball more. Then you have to re-recruit them every single year. That's got to drive coaches crazy.
Yeah, you do. And Dave, what Doug's right. Basically, you're getting a 1 semester audition. These kids. I mean, so signing date is, look, this is making it more and more interesting. And I'm telling you, I've been doing, this, putting shows together for a while. There's more to talk about than I've ever seen in my life. And it just keeps getting better. College football, it's right. It's the gift that keeps on giving. College athletics. Everybody loves to say, this is it. It's ruined. BS. It's not. Go back and look at the benchmarks in history. The 1950s, college football on TV. Then why would anybody go to the games? Look what happened there. When we integrated college football in the late 60s, early 70s, it's the best thing that ever happened. Nothing pulls people together like sports and good food. Watch True South with John T. Edge and Wright Thompson. That's as good as it gets for TV documentary stuff. But then we talk about 1984, Chuck Ninus, the CFA, Oklahoma and Georgia, sued for the right to put more games on TV, every game on TV. How'd that work out? Everybody's expanded their stadiums. I'm going to tell y'all something, people. It's always darkest before dawn. We get these dead cat bounces in the stock market all the time. If you have a stock that you love and you buy it at 25 and it falls to 17 and you still love it, buy more, double down. That's what's happening, Dave, you being a venture capital guy and Doug being in what he does. This is where we're going, and it's going to work out. I'm an optimist. You're damn right I am.
Well, so far it has worked out. I mean, go back when we were children and the AFL and the NFL. The AFL was a very entertaining product. The NFL's product was little by little becoming less entertaining. The leagues merged, the Super Bowl happened, and trillions of dollars later we have the NFL. I think the college game is becoming increasingly entertaining. It'll be more entertaining next year. To me, in terms of sports, the big question is golf. And what's the PGA Tour going to do in its current negotiations and the deals trying to put together? Because right now, a PGA Tour separate from a Live Tour is a less entertaining product for golf. And so what are they going to do to make golf even more entertaining? If Tiger Woods makes a comeback, he needs to be able to play against Jon Rahm, even though, John's in Live now. And so it's the real question. Obviously, the most important consideration is what's best for the kids that are on the field, creating the entertainment. But what's the most entertaining product? What can we do to make the product more entertaining? Because the more entertaining it is, the more people will spend money to consume it. Yeah,
and I think the fact that we have 12 teams next year in the playoff. Who was 13 and 14? That's going to be the debate. But that is what fuels interest in college football. Frank Duffy, I think Frank had to go out there. He's the train conductor, boxcar Willie on that train. But
A&M transfers coming into.
Somebody's got to process them and get him those purple and gold jerseys. I just had to go out there and do that real quick.
Fulfilling his obligation.
And I'll tell you what I love. And this is an interesting thing. This guy Kelly Leak, don't know him. But thank you, Kelly. You are always watching the show, listening, whatever. And we've got thousands of you doing that. And we are blessed. And thank you so much, because what we do here is a team effort. I always say this. Go get Pat Sullivan's 1971 Heisman Trophy. It's not just one. It's this entire group. But he says, yes, it's about entertainment now. That's why Florida State University was left out of the playoffs. Frank Duffy, agree with Kelly, disagree? But he looks like he played for the Bad News Bears, so he's smart.
Well, I hate to say this, but Alabama is the better team. If they played on a neutral field, they would kill Florida State right now. I watched that game, Florida State against Louisville. And look, as an LSU guy, that just the nightmare will not end. The thought of having Saban hoist another national championship, which should be mine, just sickens me to death. But in all honesty, I have to call it like I see it. And Alabama is one of the 4 best teams in the nation right now. They just are. And it took them 4th and 31. And, I was hoping against hope that it wouldn't go through. And I was pulling for Georgia. But you know what? They won it on the field. And it doesn't matter what the 4th quarter in South Florida was. It doesn't matter the Texas game. So, no, Florida State, I feel for you. It's a tough pill to swallow, but you're not one of the 4 best teams. You just not.
I feel for. I mean, I really don't emotionally feel for, but logically, I feel for Georgia. What do you have to
more
do?
so? Well, let me tell you.
What do you have to do? You barely lose to the GOAT Saban in what was a close game for most of the game, and that's just the way it felt.
Well, Texas beating Alabama meant that they had to go as a couple. That they were like double entries in a race, a race from the same trainer. It was 1 and 1A. They had to go in together. They could not put Alabama in without putting Texas, so Georgia could not leapfrog them. So the fact that Alabama lost to Texas, that did Georgia in.
Not only that, I've always felt like, and there are certain things the committee won't say out loud, but I can do that. I'm just a sidewalk fan, and a fake analyst. But the committee this is all about the distribution of political power, as in the conferences. Because in order to get everybody to commit to a 4-team playoff and now a 12-team, they have to throw a bone it has to seem fair enough to the Power 5 conferences for them to coalesce and sign on to it. So any year that they possibly can in that room, with a lot of expensive catering and coffee nonstop, they are going to try to get all the Power 5 conferences winning from this. But there are going to be years. 2011 was a good example, and this year was another unfortunate example. If you're a Seminole fan, and arguably if you're a Georgia fan, they should have gone to 6. I think Dave made this point a while ago. Should have gone not to 4 but to 6 teams, and that would have helped as an interim. Going to 12 teams. Why? Because you've got 5 power conferences.
And the irony of it, Doug, is that the ACC is the one that signed off on this secret handshake, triumvirate society between them and the LAC-12 and the Little 10, which caused this mess. Florida State would have been in it because we'd already been at 12 teams. They're the ones, because of they're holier than thou. Our diplomas are better than your diplomas, which is ridiculous, caused this mess. We would already be at 12 teams.
The SLAC-12 did not start playing until the first week of November. And they played 4 or 5 games because they were smarter than everybody else. They were smarter. Now, look, I love the ACC. I love the history and the tradition. But I'm going to tell you what, and when they look back on that league one day, and I hope it doesn't become extinct, but they're going to say we put too much into basketball when we should have been building up our football programs, because what makes the grass grow and pays the bills is football. I had a coach tell me the other day, you want to be in everything school, you'll be good. You'll be good to shitty in a lot of sports. You better make football number one. And when Kirby Smart was talking to Georgia, he said, if you're not in this to go big, I mean big, I'm not coming. But if you're in it to go big, I'll be your man. And now with NIL at Georgia, by God, they are all in it to go big. So is Alabama. And now Auburn has the 7th largest war chest at latest check of NIL money in America. Folks, I mean, either you are in this. No, and I'm not saying, Kelly's getting into this. So punish. Yeah, let me tell you something. Ben Troop said this on the show last week. So punish FSU because of the ACC. Well, the way Ben described it, and Ben's smart, he said that's exactly what happened. Miami's down. Clemson's down. North Carolina's down. Virginia Tech's down. Guys, Dave, jump in on this one. That's why FSU got left out.
The only program you can argue that's been dominant in both basketball and football is Florida. but Steve Spurrier and Billy Donovan never crossed paths. That they were dominant in different eras. Alabama's been to one Elite Eight in its history, despite all the great teams of C.M. Newton, Wimp Sanderson, and now with Nate Oates. North Carolina, Duke in basketball, they've really never been relevant in football in terms of who's who in football. And so, Rob, you're right. You make a choice with your athletic program. We're going to go all in on basketball. We're going to get Coach K and Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley and all they've had, or we're going to go all in on football. We're going to be Nick Saban. It's hard to do both. It's a race to mediocrity if you try to do both. Football happens.
Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there's only 4 schools in history in the top 25 all-time wins for football and basketball: Notre Dame, Texas, Michigan, and Ohio State. It's hard to do.
Rob, I suspect we talk about cultural differences that you can identify regionally, and I don't want to besmirch any particular fan base at any given zip code across the fruited plain, but I do think, just from opinions I've heard, attitudes from football conferences outside the Deep South over the years, we became used to hearing the criticism that we're just football factories down here. I know you guys are, and it's not meant as a compliment. No. It's meant that's code language, and half the time it's not even code language. They just tell it boldly that we compromise academic excellence as a university in the name of putting great football teams out. And so I think if that was in the air, and some of these academicians at ACC schools and other schools wanted to have a football program, but they didn't necessarily want to be all in with it and put the resources and facilities and commitment into it that would give it a chance to contend at the highest level. Just my opinion.
Well, I mean, look at the University of Michigan, and it is a football program. It is a football school. You can't have a national championship team if you get to recruit from Detroit in basketball, Detroit, Flint, all that, and the only time they won in '89, but the team everyone remembers is the precursor to NIL, the Fab Five. They had to pay all the players to come to Michigan and stay at Michigan and not go in the NBA. But I mean, if you're a basketball coach and you can recruit out of Detroit and you can't get in the national championship, it just shows where Michigan's priority is. It's in football.
Yeah, and they just won their 1,000th victory in football. They're the winningest. But think about this: Michigan claims 11 national championships. You know how many they've won since 1948? One. They were co-national champions in 1997, along with Nebraska, who was winning their 3rd in the last 4 years. That was the last year of Dr. Tom Osborne, who has a PhD in psychology. I'm going to tell you, Doug, knocking it out of the park, as are you, Dave, and Frank. Great stuff. Jason Patterson joined. By the way, I just got a picture from my friend Big Daddy Chris Lynch. It's a classic photo. My dad, remember those boats you'd see down there in Florida and Destin as a kid? The big We the People boat, you pay $25 to go bottom. My dad calls them the We the People boats. You pay $25 to go deep sea fishing, and you're just dropping a line, catching grouper and snapper all day. And as a young kid one time, I remember bringing 3 laundry baskets full of other people's fish. And my dad goes, "Boy, you expect me to clean those?" And we took them to Sexton's Fish Market. And this was 40 years ago. It was like a $250 cleaning bill. But Lady Evanthea and the Florida Girl, I'll never forget. We went down there one morning, and we went to pay at the little ticket booth, and the person opened. It was the bearded woman smoking a cigarette at like 6 a.m. Like, ah! So we told them we were all under 15, that we were 11. We were all like, older than that. And we got on the boat. And we're out there, and the captain looked at my 2 friends and me, and he said, "Y'all are, by God, the biggest 11-year-olds I've ever seen in my life." Well, we had a great time, but I got to tell you, after a while, the smell of people's cigarette smoke and bait fish being cut open all morning, and the boat going up and down.
And look, you're bobbing up and down like a golf.
Yes. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break from one of our sponsors we're proud and blessed to have. We're going to be right back. And we're going to get into some rapid fire questions because we never can get to everything we want to talk about. But y'all are making so many salient points. And somebody asked, I'm not sure which county erudite is in Alabama. And if we can find that out when we come back, erudite is in North Alabama. It's near Fife, but we'll be right back to talk about it.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Dave Tompkins, Buford, South Carolina, the Low Country, and Doug Dean in Vestavia, Frank Duffy in New Orleans when he gets back. But I think so much, and this is really, I mean, Kelly Leak is smart, you know. But again, Doug, you got to say this. We have to be careful when we want Georgia or Alabama or Auburn or Ole Miss or Arkansas or Tennessee to lose every game, because then would there be any interest nationally in the Iron Bowl if you had Auburn and Alabama both at 2-9, 3-8, something like that? They're not. You want to beat your team rivals at their best, don't you? I mean, I think that's worthy of a discussion here. And that's how I feel. You don't get a lot of points for beating up a man in his bed.
Well, there you go, being logical again, Rob, which is not allowed in college football fandom. But back to the listener wondered where erudite Alabama is. I think it's just north of that unincorporated community in Sumter County, Intercourse, Alabama.
There we go.
I was going to say it was 8 miles north by northwest of Demopolis.
Yeah, over in the Black Belt. Yeah,
and the residents. A share of those residents have, for obvious reasons, wanted to change the name, but it's still on the map. But back to your point, gosh, I don't know what fans want. You run into your theory of we want Alabama to be undefeated when Auburn plays them. You're logically correct there. But what that runs headlong into, and I probably have espoused this philosophy over the years, and I can promise you my friends of Crimson Persuasion, many of them would feel the same. And it's the theory is, let's say if you're an Auburn fan, anything bad that happens to the Crimson Tide is automatically good for Auburn. And so is that true? That's possibly true in recruiting if a program is really down, and Alabama fans by now have forgotten what it feels like to be down. You have to have lived a little while. The ones that are just graduating college can't relate to that. It hurts your recruiting, but in the big picture, Rob is 100% right that in terms of branding your program, it means a lot to beat Alabama, anybody to beat them. And, Auburn's been able to do that a little more, one or two more than a lot of programs in recent years. So, I think if I'm being logical, is it the right side of my brain? Yeah, I want Alabama and Georgia to be strong every year so that it makes that game a really big game if you can go win it. On the other side of my brain, no, it sure is fun when you see them lose.
Well, I know, and it's a diametrically opposing argument, and diametrically is just south of Opp, I think, on 331. But somebody jump at that one. I mean, you gotta, if you're beating a 2-9 team, that ain't gonna help you get in the playoffs, Frank. But at the same time, it's your rival. It's tough, man. I don't think Coke pulls for Pepsi.
I mean, go last week, the Army-Navy game. I mean, we know what's going to happen that game every year. It's going to start off beautiful. You cry, teams to the national anthem. It's going to be boring in the middle of the game, option football. and then it's going to be fantastic the last 5 minutes of the game. It's that way every year. I mean,
you were right. You called it, and you were right.
Yeah, it just because the records don't matter in that game, nor do they matter in the Iron Bowl, particularly in the Iron Bowl when it's played at Jordan-Hare. I don't care what Auburn's record is. If Alabama's having to go to Auburn for the Iron Bowl, it's going to be a game. I mean, and Saban is 5-4 at Jordan-Hare. He should be 3-6. He won 2 games, including this year, that he didn't deserve to win. So I respectfully disagree. Well, I agree in general on the 2-9 and that stuff, but I disagree as it relates to the Iron Bowl, because when you're playing at Auburn, something happens there. I mean, something happens with Auburn's team, the stadium. I don't know. It's voodoo.
Frank, I got to ask you this.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this the whole show because you brought it up, and I'm going to put you on Liuzzi's stuffed artichoke. God,
that's good.
Here I am on a sports show, but I'm thinking about that stuffed artichoke. And they serve the beer ice cold in those fish bowl glasses. What do they call them?
Fish bowls. It's
fish bowl, yeah.
It actually forms on the inside of the bowl and on the outside. So when you're picking it up, there's literally icicles on your hands.
I love it. All right, Frank, let's throw this at you. You look at the Bible. You grew up. No, Frank was a dual fan, and he still does this. He'll go to a Tulane day game, go up to Baton Rouge for LSU night game. He was a ball boy at Tulane. Willie Fritz woke up Tulane. Tommy Bowden went undefeated in 97 or 98, went 11-0. And
Larry Smith.
You've got a new coach coming in there to Tulane. I wish LSU and Tulane still played. I mean, why not? What the hell?
Well, I can tell you why they don't. LSU stopped playing Tulane because of the revenue share. So what used to happen is LSU would play in Tiger Stadium, again, be a packed house, and then we would go into the Dome, and Tulane would have 10,000 fans, and LSU would bring 50, 55, 60,000 fans.
Yeah. Okay.
And LSU just said, you're not keeping the revenue. We're just not doing this. Now, they did give Tulane the opportunity. You want to come here and play at LSU every year? We'll keep you on the schedule. Tulane didn't want to do that because they didn't want to lose the extra home game. Now that Tulane is on a reserve, I think it's a great rivalry. But to Doug's point earlier when I was sitting outside on the balcony, I mean, look, we're playing UCLA, USC, a murderer's row in the SEC. I mean, thank God we got Nicholls State on there. No offense to our friends in Thibodaux, Louisiana, but man, we need a breather. I mean, then you throw Tulane back on, which we always will have a Louisiana opponent. Every year we have a Louisiana.
Yeah.
Purple jerseys. But it just, I mean, you just run out of opportunities. I mean, before long, we're going to be 17 games at NFL, schedule. But look, I'd be remiss, because since we are the show of honesty, I will be remiss if I don't tell y'all my honest opinion of watching Alabama win. Dude, for an LSU guy, it is like a nightmare that will not freaking end. It's like I can't wake up. I'm watching it over and over again. And every now and again, we're like the one blindsided. That game in 2011, on every LSU fan's deathbed, the biggest disappointment was we lost to Alabama on what could have been the greatest college football season of all time. This is before our 2019 team.
Yeah,
that 2011 team, their resume is unbelievable. But because you didn't finish the drill and you had to play Saban twice, you had to beat him in Tuscaloosa, then beat him in the Dome. But look, I'm telling you right now, guys, there's nothing worse than having your coach leave to go lay an egg at Miami, the Miami Dolphins, and then come back to one of your rivals. And look, I never had these feelings for Alabama until Nick Saban got there and got off the plane in Tuscaloosa and was kissing houndtooth women and babies and the confetti was. And look, here's the thing. I knew what was about to happen. I told all my buddies, I said, this is going to be ugly, guys. This is going to be our worst nightmare. And look, I was in Bryant-Denny in 2007
when Chad Jones sacked John Parker Wilson at the 12-yard line, the fumble way back. We won that game. If without that, we don't win the national championship in 07. And I turned to my buddy who was next to me, great friend of mine. I said, we are in deep, deep trouble, because this was the year after the Mikes, the succession of Coach Mikes, where y'all had beat them 6 in a row. We had beat them 5 in a row. And that 2007 team, I was like, this is the only beginning. And Dave, to your point, Julio Jones came on the scene in 2008, and everything changed. Guys, when y'all had them 4th and 31, I said, in fact, I even texted y'all this. Y'all can go back to your text. I texted when we were on that group text. I said, if you have Saban down, you better drive the stake in his heart, because if you don't nail him in the coffin, it ain't gonna end well. And 10 seconds later, I was about to have to go to Jordan Hare and do a wellness check on my buddy Doug, because I was afraid of what the hell was happening in that end zone where I knew he was sitting. I'm telling you guys, I cheer for every SEC team. I ain't cheering for Alabama. I'm just being honest.
Well,
I respect that. Go ahead,
back to Kelly's point about Florida State. I mean, I respect every Florida State fan and every fan just in general to say that Florida State not getting in was a violation of due process. And here I am, an Alabama fan, and I think the much better team got in, and all of that. One thing I've been pondering about since that Sunday, what was now 2 weeks ago. Like when the committee was talking, and at some point was Florida State in and Alabama's not, and they go, okay, which one of us is going to call Coach Saban and tell them that they're not in?
Yeah. And not on his swan song tour, because there's enough breadcrumbs along the trail for Coach Saban the last month to say this might very well be his last go round. And brother, there ain't no way they were keeping the goat out for a team that only had scored a few points against a Louisville team who the week before had gotten boat raced by the 8th best team in the SEC. It wasn't going to happen. Kelly Leak, I'm sorry, brother. I know y'all ran the table. Back when we played y'all in Orlando, I said, and Rob has tape on this, I said Florida State's going to be one of the 4 teams in the NCAA playoff. I changed my mind when I sat there and watched that debacle in Charlotte. There was no way they were going to keep Nick Saban and Alabama out for Florida State. There was no way it was going to happen.
Rob, I mean, Duff, I'm head of the grievance committee for wayward LSU fans. We have heard your plea, and we outright reject the whining, and here's why. All y'all did,
I can't help it. It oozes out of me like bourbon on a Sunday morning after the Florida game.
A call to order. We're holding you in contempt for interrupting the judge. No, seriously, I understand what you're saying. It would be nice to have added 5, 6, 7 trophies but all you did was win 2 national championships in the time Saban's been at Alabama. Auburn should have won 2. And so, I could make a case if Saban doesn't arrive at Alabama, Auburn does not do what is required to have the talent and roster to win in 2010. I mean, it absolutely woke Auburn up. Now, we're not built to sustain that. That's the next step you got to try to make. But I hear everything you're saying. I'm not really even disagreeing with how you feel, Duffy. But I think all these coaches on some level are monetary mercenaries, and they go where they think they can sustain winning the longest and be paid. And that could have been LSU. Why wasn't it?
Here's the crazy thing. Here it was Wayne Huizenga. That plane that landed and got Saban the day before our bowl game against Iowa and Tampa in 2000. Was it 4? I mean, that was a dark day for LSU football. But I will say this: it's really weird when we won the national championship in 2019. The really weird thing was, had that national champion, again, if and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, and my aunt would be my uncle. But if you flip that national championship game in the Superdome in 2011, LSU and Alabama would have had tied national championship. We would have both been 4-4. Now they've gone on to win another one since. But that's how weird that thing was. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. We wound up stumbling and bumbling our way to a national championship with Les Miles, with Nick Saban's players. And Coach Orgeron caught lightning in a jug of homemade bourbon.
Joe Burrow, yeah.
I have no idea. I never saw it coming. It was like a flash of a comet across the sky. But I will say, you ask any LSU guy, Alabama was a grease fire before Nick Saban got there. Y'all had beat him 6, we had beat him 5. Nick Saban stays at LSU. Those are LSU's national championships. And I don't want to whine about it, but I'm telling you, those are LSU's national championships.
Oh, let's throw something out here. I mean, and Dave, and Doug, Frank, y'all know this. Everybody listening, from 97 to 07, those were the dark ages. Alabama, in those 11 years, 8 times lost 5 or more games in a season, including Nick Saban's first year when they lost to Louisiana Monroe. That's when he doubled down with the Red Elephant Club, the benevolent and protective order that they are, to help Alabama athletics. And they went down there and they got Julio Jones. You know, his mother ran a restaurant down there, and every member of the Red Elephant, they know how to get those players. In order to be successful, you can't just have a good year and then have 3 or 4 crappy years. You got to be committed to doing it every year. And I think now I'm going to throw this one at y'all. We're about out of time. By the way, been saying it all during the week. Spare me the righteous indignation you want to rip on Bobby Petrino. It ain't about, raise your own kids. You got to give them that moral compass. I don't look at him as a role model, but he's a hell of a coach, and Arkansas is trying to win, and 90% of their fan base is okay with that. But Charlie Baker in the NCAA, their next movie is to put a cap on the amount of money schools and the NIL give. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. But the Supreme Court ruled 9-0, Dave Tompkins. You cannot infringe on the right of an individual to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to earn a living. Good luck trying to do that with the Supreme Court that we have now, Dave Tompkins.
Genie's
I'm going to go back to LSU and Alabama and Saban. I hope Alabama boosters have given a lifelong pension to Tyrone Prothro, because he was that great receiver we had. He made an incredible catch, Brody Croyle. And then that same game was, his career ended so tragically. It was so painful to watch. And I'm going to get struck by lightning back to call it a silver lining, but the good that came out of it, that was the end of Shula. And that brought us Saban, because, had he stayed healthy, we would have been a really good team that year. Shula would have stayed on. And it didn't happen. And I hope Tyrone is being very well compensated. I hope he has a wonderful life, because he was a great player, and his tragic, injury really is what led to Saban, I believe.
Talk about another pivotal moment. Yeah. If Drew Brees goes to Miami and doesn't come here to win a Super Bowl in New Orleans for the Saints, Saban might stay at Miami. I mean, it is the biggest. I joked with Rob and Doug about this week. It's the biggest Lady and the Tiger issue for us Louisiana people. Would we have given up a Super Bowl for our Saints to not have Nick Saban at Alabama? It is a conundrum. It keeps you up at night. I mean,
it was right after Katrina. I'd go with the Super Bowl.
The conundrum is just north of Huntsville. I just found that.
Don't forget. The morning of 2007, when Les Miles got called out on ESPN by Kirk Herbstreit before we went on to beat Tennessee to go on to the national championship, many people don't know this, but we were actually in talks with Nick Saban to bring him back. I mean, there are so many pivot points on what could have been. It's the old book that was written. What would have happened if the South had won the Civil War? Around these parts, there are Nick Saban crossroads and conspiracy theories like you would absolutely not believe. I'm telling you, this is something that will stick in every LSU Tiger fan's craw, and I'm just being honest with you. It will stick in our craw till the day we die Nick Saban didn't stay at LSU to win those national championships.
Yeah, and look, we unfortunately run out of time, but
roll tide.
That's a great discussion. That is a great. You can't. You know what? A lot of, salient points, one after the other that you're reeling off there. I think what happened, that doctor in Miami, had he ruled that Drew Brees was okay, then he goes to Miami. History would have been different. Rich Rod would have been Alabama's coach. I don't know what would have happened, but all I know is Rich Rod's at Jacksonville State now, and that's
I'm just ready for this roller coaster to end. Just get me off this damn thing.
Duff, Alabama fans I'm trying to be fair here. It's not easy because you're like T-Bob A-Bear minus the expletives, and you're fired up. But Alabama fans could rightly lament how many national championships would they have if they had been smart enough to hire Bobby Bowden and not ask him to go through a damn interview.
True.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that almost happened when Auburn met with Bobby Bowden at Lake Eufaula, Alabama, after Vince Dooley turned Auburn down and didn't get Bobby, but they signed Pat Dye. He was like the fifth choice. And there's so many, I tell you, I'd love to do a series of documentaries. I want to do a show called Forensic Officiating. What if we'd have had the review booth for the last 100 years? How different might college football look? Some of the games, some of the plays that we've had. I think it'd be a fascinating series that the production team here at Sidelines could start doing. And also, where are they now? You know who I'd like to talk to right now, probably more than any coach out there? Brother Bill Oliver out of Epps, Alabama, over in the block. I love that guy. I know some people that know him. And we had Ward Pell on the show last year, Charlie Pell's widow. And God, we got to get her back on. She is so cool.
Jolie done.
Yeah, Jolie dead now, but you're right.
When did he pass?
Like a couple of years ago. And Sockless Jolie done. But Brother Bill Oliver, just to sit there at the bar and hold court with him and just listen. He used to live in Memphis at my friend's guest house at their home in Chickasaw Gardens when he was in Memphis. And it was really cool to see that. And, Jackie Sherrill said on this show, something cool about getting these legends on this show. He really loves to come on this show. And that is thank you so much, Coach. But it's because we have great guests and great listeners. But I would love to get Jackie Sherrill on here, Jimmy Johnson. I'd love to hear from Brother Oliver. I'd love to talk to Pat Jones, who was the coach at Oklahoma State when Barry Sanders was there. Nobody remembers him, but there's just so many of these coaches out there that you'd love to just let them just go on about how football came about. I don't know if Galen Hall is still around. I don't know, if a lot of these guys are still here.
Can we get Mike
Slocum at Tech? Hey, R.C. Slocum at Texas A&M and Jackie Sherrill, they knew how to handle the
It's rolling, baby.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, since Duff and maybe Dave, I can't remember, have made me hear the phrase 4th and 31 about 6 times on this show, which is
I never bring it up.
I brought it up once, but I would sit down. The beverages are on me, Coach Oliver. What defense would you call on 4th and 31? I promise you, it wouldn't be rushing to and putting a spy there.
Right.
Doug Dean, you may have come up with the best idea for a show. Brother Bill Oliver, what would you have called on? Because Brother Oliver.
You make the call, Bill.
Yeah, look, that guy, I would love, because he did 2 tours at Auburn and 2 tours of duty at Alabama. His 1969 Auburn defense picked off 9 passes against Florida and their quarterback, John Reeves, in the 69 Auburn-Florida game up in Auburn. 9 interceptions in one game. Nowadays, with the defenses that we play and everything, you're lucky to have 9 interceptions for a team for the entire season.
That's only 3 less than y'all got against us in '94.
Yes, Rob, I was there.
God bless Curly Hallman. That was just a beautifully called game. It really was.
Yes, it was. Bring back Curly.
Hey, Rob, I think
Yeah.
Kevin. I don't think Kevin Steele's getting quite enough credit this year. That defense
love that guy.
kept Alabama in some dangerous games. He was probably. I think Saban is an accepted, well-documented defensive genius, but he might get a little too sophisticated for players that are only there 2 years to begin with. And I think Kevin Steele's a good translator and motivator to get them to play, but he's going to always be in the background because people just want to talk about Saban as the defensive genius.
Fred Thompson, the great actor and former U.S. Senator from Tennessee, in the movie Hunt for Red October, that's Kevin Steele. That's who that's who would play Kevin Steele in a movie. I said before the season to Rodney Orr and to all of y'all and Gary Harris, who cover Alabama for us, that alpha male culture he's going to bring back will fix Alabama immediately. And it did. It kept them from going down some crazy paths.
Will get out of hand. This will get out of hand. We will have trouble.
Yeah. By the way, also one of Alec Baldwin's best roles he ever played. He may be a jerk off the stage, but he's one of the best actors we've ever seen. All right. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. You see veterans. You see your police and firemen, especially this time of year. Buy them around. Yeah. Pick up a tab. We are all blessed in more ways than we can imagine, okay? And we got the parade, Christmas parade tomorrow in Parkin, Arkansas at 5 p.m. We're going up there. MJ's going to the store to buy toys for kids. There's a lot of great things that you can do, folks. But Mother Teresa said it best. We can all do something. We can't do everything, but we can all do something. Don't
Rob,
ever
can
forget
you
that.
buy them around if they're on duty?
Sure. What the hell?
It's holidays.
In New Orleans, you can't.
Yeah, in New Orleans, the Irish cops from the Little Rascals, those big guys, you do whatever they tell you to do. But anyway, we'll be back on Monday morning. To all of our guests, our sponsors, our listeners, thank you so much for doing this. This gets more fun every day. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and let us go. We will be back Monday morning. Have a great one, everybody. We're out of here.
God bless you guys.
Thank you.